Good evening, everyone. On behalf of myself and my entire team, I wanted to say thank you so much for being here this evening for what I believe is going to be an incredibly inspiring and remarkable evening for all of you. It is an honor, a true honor, to introduce you all to Kiley Durham. And I'm going to let her tell you her story. But her story is full of endurance, resilience, and inspiration, because she is a magical person. I have had the joy of getting to know Kiley as a friend over the last several months, and it has been such an honor to bring her into my life and to enable her to share her story with all of you. She is a woman, she is a mother, she's an artist, she's a wife, she's a designer, she's so many things, and so I look forward to having her share her story with you. You're also going to hear from her care team, led by Dr. Cigler and Dr. Ng, and it is an honor also to have them here today because of their brilliant solutions and their brilliant partnership of Kiley over the course of her care treatment. So with that, let's let the evening begin. Thank you.
I was originally diagnosed with breast cancer in 2017. I had just given birth to our second child. My life changed forever. My doctor at New-York-Presbyterian did chemo, mastectomy, and radiation. It was a total success. A year later, I started having these really bad headaches. I had a large brain tumor behind my left eye. My mother's on the ground crying, "How can this be happening?" But my brain surgeon saved my life. My blood work was good. We were really feeling like we were out of the woods. After another whole year, every part of me felt heavy, and the next thing I know, I'm on my way back to New-York-Presbyterian. I had something called leptomeningeal disease. The cancer infiltrated my cerebral spinal fluid. It's a very rare late stage complication, and it's considered terminal. My radiologist had tears in his eyes talking to me about it. My husband and I cried together the entire night, just talking about all the things that you never think you're going to be talking about. When my kids tell the story of their mom, what story are they telling? But my doctors kept saying, let's figure this out together. We did the immunotherapy in combination with chemo. They were treating me like Kiley, the woman who's obsessed with her children, painting, and her husband. I'm very thankful for my doctors. They are the dream team. I am now cancer-free. I hope that my story inspires my kids to fight harder than they've ever fought for anything they want in their life.
Thank you, Devika, for the introduction, and welcome everyone to the first live episode of Health Matters. We are so glad you're all here, and Kiley, we're so glad you're here.
The honor's mine. It's great to see all of you guys tonight.
So we just saw this beautiful video, and as you probably heard, we are all so inspired by your resilience. Everyone has fallen in love with you.
Thank you.
Before we dive into your cancer journey, tell us a little bit about yourself. What brought you to New York?
I moved to New York when I was 22 years old to work in fashion. And it was really like a dream come true. I moved here, met the boss of my dreams, who's in the audience tonight, and worked with the team of my dreams, and loved every minute of it, designing dresses and just living the city girl life that I dreamed of growing up in the South. And from there, actually 20 years ago this week, I met my husband. And we got married and we had kids, and before we knew it, we had been here for 20 years.
Oh my gosh, it goes so fast.
Yes.
So you met your husband, you had your children, and now it's 2017 and you felt a lump in your breast.
Yes. I was pregnant with, or I had just given birth to our second child. Our son was 5.5 and starting kindergarten very soon. And our daughter was 3 months old. And I I guess to back up before that, at my 8-week appointment with my OBGYN, I said, I feel something in this breast. I think it's breastfeeding related, but could you look at it? And he just really urged me to, not guess and to get an ultrasound. And it was fairly evident in the ultrasound that it wasn't breastfeeding related, and a biopsy the next day confirmed that it was breast cancer. So I had a 3-month-old, and I had breast cancer.
I know you've talked about how hard it was waiting for that call.
Yes. So the timing sort of fell over the weekend, so we had this very long, drawn-out weekend waiting to hear back from my doctor. And with small children, we were trying to keep the house as normal as possible. We got up early, we went for a walk to the park, we did our family dinners, we did all of the things we do on the weekend. And then Monday came and we knew the call was coming that Monday. And, we were trying to be busy. I cleaned the house more times than I could possibly think of. And we just thought all day, when is he calling? When are they calling? We just want this over. And then the phone rang. And all I could think, in those 5 seconds it took for me to answer the phone and put it to my ear, was, I want it back. I want the weekend back. I want one more walk. I want one more pizza. I want one more middle of the night feeding with my newborn. I want just one more day of normal before they tell me what I think I already know. It was, heart racing, throat tightening, just all of those feelings all at once. And then he said the words that I just never imagined I would hear in my life. I'm sorry, it's breast cancer. And our world just flipped in a nanosecond.
And so how did you find Dr. Cigler, who we look forward to bringing on later tonight? And what was that first visit like?
So initially, I met with Dr. Simmons, my oncologic surgeon, and I met her because my OBGYN, he said, listen, you are the age of my daughter, and if she was in your shoes right now, there would be no discussion. This is the doctor she would see. So I already made you an appointment. You don't have to keep it. But I just really just talk to her, just see what you think. We had researched other doctors. We had taken in quite a few referrals, and she was the one. It was a no-brainer. She referred me to Dr. Cigler, and again, it was a perfect match. So the next day, after I met Dr. Simmons, I met Dr. Cigler, and I walked into her office, and the first thing she said was, "We need to talk about your hair." I still had very long, big hair from being pregnant, and I was going to be on chemo. And so she said, "We really need to talk about your hair." And my husband said, let's talk about the treatment first. We'll get back to the hair. And she said, no, this is very important to her. She is about to have a lot of things change. Let's do something to make it easier. And so we talked about the wig and where I should go. And it was just the most human, empathetic moment in the middle of a season that became very scientific. I was hearing about medications and side effects and blood counts, and I had never had an MRI in my life, and all of a sudden I was having them all the time. And to sort of pause that for just one little second and be so incredibly human was so comforting and really helped me through. And helped me, I think, to even trust her because she was so kind in that very first meeting.
So you mentioned chemo, MRI. Can you talk about the recommended treatment? And I also love something you shared with me when we spoke, a little advice that Dr. Cigler gave you ahead of it. So
I was diagnosed with triple-negative breast cancer, and the standard course of treatment would be ACT chemo. We also added on carboplatin at the end, which is good for BRCA1 patients, which we found out that I was later through genetic testing. It's a very long road. I had about 48 hours to stop breastfeeding my daughter because that was one thing that would have to go away. We had 24 hours to decide if we thought we wanted any more children, because if we were going to have to figure out some very quick fertility options. I was 36 years old, and this was not what I thought my 36th year was going to be. And chemo is a very long road. There's not any other way to say it than that. It's exhausting, it's draining, and if for me, I had two very small children that I was trying to take care of when I could. It was difficult. Dr. Cigler knew that was coming, and so she called me. We had been in just overdrive the week before I was starting chemo, trying to, organize the house and make sure the kids had what they needed and those sorts of things. And I was actually on my way back from the grocery store for the 10th time, the day before or the weekend before I started chemo. And Dr. Cigler called me. It was 6 o'clock in the evening, and she said, "What are you doing?" And I said, "I'm getting organized and everything." She said, "Okay, how are you feeling?" And I said, "I'm okay." She said, "Okay, stop, just rest, delegate. I know you have people here to help you, and it's time for you to rest. So I want you to just go home and rest for the rest of the weekend and come in ready to start this next week."
It's time for you to rest. I love that. And so you mentioned you were breastfeeding. You're only 36. You're a young mother of 2 young children. What was it like navigating this illness, on top of parenting and with your children?
Oh gosh, it's exactly what it sounds like. I think, I feel very fortunate because my mother was able to basically just stop in the middle of her own tracks in Georgia and move in with us in New York, and helped me around the clock with the kids through my entire course of chemo. I also have a sister that lives in the city, and she was with me every step of the way at almost every doctor's appointment. And we also had a lot of other out-of-town family. My father and my stepmom, they were all coming up and helping. My husband's family came up quite a bit, and so they really kept our world revolving when I was too tired to. But, we had to have some very candid conversations with our 5-year-old, almost 6-year-old. Mommy is going to take some medicine that's going to make her feel different, it's going to make her act differently, and she's going to look really different. And if you're ever embarrassed by it or uncomfortable by what you see, please just tell me. And so at first he said, "I think I'm okay with it." And then later, I think when I was tucking him in for bed that night, he said, "Would you mind wearing your wig when you come to school?" He said, "I think it should just be our secret." And so it was just our secret. So the first day I ever wore my wig was to his first day of kindergarten.
Well, so you mentioned how supportive your family is, which has just been so clear in learning about your story. Was it hard to kind of let go and let people help you?
Yes. I'm a super independent person. I am a super busy person. I never stop moving, and to literally be stopped in my tracks was really difficult. And I think we all, as adults, we have our routines, we have our way that we like things. You add kids into the mix and you really have a way you like to do things. And then to just hand that over was almost more exhausting than the chemo some days. But here's the thing, my kids are great. They are totally okay. They may not have been on the same schedule that I would have had them on in that moment. But I learned a lot about accepting help. I learned a lot about limits, and I learned to be very grateful when people show up for you, even if they don't do it exactly the way that you would have done it. Yeah.
And you also rediscovered art through this. Can you talk about the moment art came back into your life and how it helped in your healing journey?
Yes. I might cry now. I have painted my whole life. I really wanted to go to art school. I ended up majoring in design, which was absolutely the right thing to do, but art and fine art especially always just held a very special secret place in my heart. My earliest memory is painting at our kitchen table when I was a child. And, at some point, life was too busy. You have children, you move on, you think that's just a childhood passion, and you sort of move on. But one day I woke up from a very long chemo nap, and there was a box on our kitchen table, and my mom said, "A package came for you," and I went over, and it was full of art supplies. And I didn't order it. I didn't know what it was, and she said, "It's not too late. I don't know what you're waiting for." So she was like, "You should do this." So after a lot of coaxing, we sat down at my kitchen table, and we started painting together almost every day. And that is how I got through chemo, for sure.
That's so beautiful. It's not too late. Your mom is awesome.
She is.
So going back to some of the clinical pieces, for a little while, it seemed like you might be in the clear, but then you started getting some headaches.
Yes.
Can you walk us through what happened next?
Yes. I think I finished chemo. I had my mastectomy and there's like a little interim period where you're healing after your mastectomy and before you can start radiation. And people had told me that, after chemo and after I heal from the mastectomy, I should really feel like a bump in my energy and I should feel a lot better. And I just really didn't. I felt very tired and fatigued all the time, and I was having these headaches. We were actually, and I remember the headaches very vividly because we were apartment shopping at the time. And so I was out with our real estate agent, who's a good friend of mine. I think she's here tonight. I was always complaining about headaches while we were out. Like, we would look at one place and I would just need to sit down. And over time, those headaches became a little stronger and a little more pronounced. And then the week we were moving into our new apartment, I had convinced my mom to come up because at that point I had already started radiation. And I needed someone to be with the movers that morning while I went to radiation.
Moving is so insane too, so this is just a lot.
Anybody that's ever moved in the city knows that it feels like you're moving to a different country, even if you're just moving 2 blocks south. And so it was a major thing. And so we were, all of these things were happening, and that was enough to have a headache. So I didn't really think a lot about it. But then a few days later, when we were in the apartment, my mom was the one that noticed that I seemed really off. Like, it wasn't just a headache anymore. I just seemed like I was not feeling well. And so she actually called Dr. Ing and said, something's not right. I don't think she feels well. And so then we thought maybe it was a bug, but he said, if you're still feeling sick tomorrow, call me and I will just meet you at the hospital. And I woke up the next morning, I felt great. And I actually thought that maybe it was just stress. Maybe I was just really tired. And that afternoon, we were having a late lunch, and my daughter was sitting in my lap, and we were being really silly, and we were just laughing and playing. And all of a sudden, I started having a headache, and I can remember saying to my mom, "Take her, take her, take her, take her, take her." I get, something's not right, something's not right. And I don't remember really anything after that. I just blacked out. I got very sick, and I blacked out. And the next thing I know is I'm in the back of an SUV because we decided it was faster to get to the hospital that way than to try to get an ambulance all the way downtown. And I was in the emergency room. They ran quite a few tests, and we were waiting. And really, I have a couple of very specific memories of the emergency room, but what I really remember is the attending walking towards me after I had finished my round of scans. And she had the most empathetic look in her eyes. I knew what she was coming to tell me. And it was just like that same feeling, like when my doctor called me on the phone, it was like it was in slow motion, but fast all at the same time. And the next thing I remember hearing is, you have a large tumor behind your left eye, and that's what's causing these headaches. And then I see my mom and my sister basically on the ground crying, because it's just the worst. It was the worst case scenario. I was immediately admitted into the hospital and prepped for surgery. And I met Dr. Rohan Ramakrishna through that. He was my surgeon. And, 5 days later, I came home from the hospital after having brain surgery.
Wow. And didn't you go to Bed Bath & Beyond or something?
Yes. So like I said, we were moving. And the crazy thing is I woke up with a smile on my face from that surgery because I felt so much better. It was almost like I didn't realize how uncomfortable I had been. I think sometimes as women or busy moms, we tend to, ignore pain or ignore discomfort for the sake of the schedule and for the sake of all the things you have to do. And afterwards, I realized how much better I just woke up so happy from brain surgery, which is a very strange thing to say. So yes, we came home from the hospital on a Friday, and on Saturday morning, I made my mom take me to Bed Bath & Beyond to buy shower curtains for our new apartment. And her favorite part of this, not favorite part of the story, but is that we had a big shopping cart, those really big ones they have, and I had all of these things in it, and I had curtain rods and whatever, and I think, I was still, well, let's be honest, I was still a little bit off because I had just had brain surgery, and I took kind of a sharp turn onto an aisle, and I knocked out an entire thing of shampoo and conditioner with the shower curtain rods all the way down. My mom was like running behind me trying to put stuff back up on the shelf, but I felt good.
And then you felt good for a while, right?
I did. Yeah. I mean, it definitely. It wasn't perfect. We had a couple of other small mets we had to deal with, but for the most part, I was doing a lot better after that. A little more than a year later, my husband and I traveled to Italy to celebrate making it an entire year without anything else, and had the best trip. We still think of it as just one of the best trips we ever took. We were so happy. I came back home. I went to Georgia to pick up our kids because our parents were keeping them for us. And I was really tired. And I just thought, this is the first time I've traveled internationally since I've been sick. Maybe it's just catching up with me. I'm a little more jet lagged than I'm used to being. And then the day before I was supposed to leave, I called Dr. Cigler because I woke up that morning and I just knew it wasn't just jet lag anymore. Something was not right. And so in the back of my mom's yard, I'm on the phone because I don't want anybody to know that I'm calling my doctors. And she said, okay, this is what we're going to do. Make up some story and convince your mom to fly back with you. I don't know if you remember saying that, but you were like, you need someone to fly back with you, but just like, don't scare anybody. Just figure out a way to get her back. But it was my sister's birthday, so it was like the perfect ruse. And so I tricked my mother into flying back with me to help with the kids, and we went straight to the doctor. From there, we decided to push up some scans I had coming. But this was the summer, so everybody's on vacation and people are coming and going. So we put in the orders for those scans. Dr. Cigler leaves for a trip that she's been planning forever. And this woman never travels and never takes any time off. And so, of course, this was the one time. And I quickly did the scans. I think I did them the next day. And then we got in the car and we drove to Long Island for our last little family vacation of the summer before school started. And as soon as I got there, the doctor that was watching after my case while Dr. Cigler was on vacation called me, and she said, you've got to come back. She didn't even say, let's schedule an appointment. She said, you need to come back. And I was like, well, I'm at the beach right now, and we're having can we do this next week? She was like, no, I would have said that if that was the case, but you really need to come back. So again, this theme that sort of runs through my story is that my entire family literally dropped everything and drove out to Long Island to stay with my kids so that we could leave first thing the next morning to come back into the city to repeat the scans and to meet with the doctor. And unfortunately, those were the scans that confirmed that I had leptomeningeal disease and I had cancer in my cerebral spinal fluid. And you think that you have a brain tumor is the worst thing you're ever going to hear in your life. And then you find out that brain tumors are not so bad, that there are things that you can do there. There are tricks, there are drugs, there are surgeries that work. And then you hear that you have sort of rogue cancer cells multiplying in your spinal fluid, and there's really no way to get to it. And there's not really anything you can do. I had a 2-year-old and a 7-year-old running around in their bare feet in the backyard of the house we were staying in Long Island, having the best summer ever and sending us selfies of their happy time. And that was the first time I cried at a doctor's appointment. I cried with Dr. Ng. I was sitting with him, and we all had tears in our eyes. And I kept pushing him, wanting to know more, how long do I have? Is it what I read on Google? And he refused to answer the questions. He said, let's just put our heads together. We're going to do something. And so they swept me into spinal radiation, which is, I think, backing up, I will say that one of the amazing things with my doctors is that I have such a good, trusting relationship that when we had to move at the speed of light to stop this thing, I could trust them to just what they wanted to do was, we were comfortable with, because we knew that they had my best interest at heart the entire time, and we had always had a very open relationship. So he recommended radiating the spine, but what we did that was a little different than what other doctors would have recommended is that he really tried to isolate the areas where the cancer cells were populating in hopes to ease my side effects, because there are quite a few side effects from radiating the spine. And from there, about a week later, we started an oral chemo called Xeloda, which I actually took for 4 years. I just actually went off this time last year. There were some conversations out there about a type of drug called immunotherapy that had a lot of success in lung cancer, various types of lung cancer, and it was very close to being approved for various purposes with breast cancer, but it had not been approved yet. But my doctors really felt like it was worth it to see if I could take it. And I don't really know what they did, but they got me approved like that. And so after, I think about a month later, we started immunotherapy.
So you mentioned that you were off treatment now. Can you talk about how you and Dr. Cigler came to that conclusion and what she said to you in the office that day? They, again, going back to our very good relationship, I think over the course of time, if I said I wasn't feeling well or I was very tired, they knew me well enough to know what I meant. And so from time to time, they would let me take like a little break, maybe a few weeks off of the chemo so that I could just catch my breath and regain a little energy. But over time, those breaks were not helping me anymore. And I just felt like I was scraping the bottom of the barrel every single day, and wanted to go to bed before we were putting my toddler to bed. It was just it was very difficult to live that way. And she really saw that and understood that. And she said, I think, we've kept you alive all of this time, and now it's just time for you to live. And so we decided to try to go off treatment, which is an incredibly scary thing when you've already beaten the odds with something that's not
considered treatable, and we treated it, and it worked, and it's terrifying to come off. And so, you can imagine I had to ask her, what happens if it comes back? And she simply said, we'll treat it.
So I'd love to ask you one more question before we invite Dr. Cigler and Dr. Ng up here. As someone who has been through so much, what are some lessons you would maybe share with the audience, or anything about your mindset you can tell us?
First, when I was first diagnosed with cancer, I just was trying to power through it. I was trying to just get it over with and get back to life and do all the things I wanted to do. And David and I would try all the time to try to figure out the timeline, chemo takes this long, then you do a mastectomy, then you have reconstruction, and then you'll be back to normal. And that doesn't work. That doesn't work in anybody's life. It doesn't work with chemo or cancer, but it's not really real life anyway. And so I think that I learned a lot about just rolling with the punches and making the best of what you have in front of you. I think later, after the LMD, I learned even more about making the most of what you have, being present every day, being happy and grateful for what you have in that moment, and not really worrying so much about the bad things. Our days are numbered. It doesn't feel like it. It felt like it for me because we really did think that my days were incredibly numbered. But the truth of the matter is, not one of us knows what tomorrow holds. And so I just decided if I was going down, I was going down fighting, and that I was going to live a happy life for 3 months or 300 months or, whatever the day is. I think I would just encourage everybody to live that way. It's way happier than sweating the small stuff.
That is such great advice. Thank you, Kiley. This was incredible. We'd love to invite Dr. Ng and Dr. Cigler to the stage now. So welcome, Dr. Cigler and Dr. Ng. To start, can you please introduce yourselves? We'll start with you, Dr. Cigler.
Oh, sure. Tessa Cigler. I'm a medical oncologist, and I specialize in breast cancer. And Kiley and I have grown up together in a way, having known her for so many years now. I always say that, Kiley just brings out the best in everyone. And so it's just a real honor to be sitting next to you today.
Thank you.
And Dr. Ng?
I'm John Ng. I'm a radiation oncologist. I specialize in breast cancer. And thank Kiley and everyone here. Just hearing that story brought back a flood of memories and just makes me realize what a privilege it is when you get to be that intimately involved in other people's lives. And Kiley, you're just amazing.
You guys are amazing.
Dr. Cigler, do you have any impressions from watching this story unfold tonight?
I have to say, I didn't remember a lot of what you said I said. Some of it I was very pleased I said, and other times, tricking your mom into flying back.
No, it wasn't the best. It wasn't the best.
I can't imagine.
You were like, I was like, I don't want to tell her. You were like, okay, then what can we say? Because we'd already been through so much. No, it was the best intentions.
Dr. Cigler, can you share about your first meeting with Kiley, and also maybe just your first meeting with any patient going through cancer, what you're hoping to convey?
Yeah, so the first meeting is, it's always, it's a lot. And I think women newly diagnosed with breast cancer are, no matter what stage of life, what age, what the degree of severity of the cancer, it is, as Kiley said, it's life-changing in a minute. And it's incredibly difficult to, in that 45 minutes or an hour, to sort of describe the logistics, but also somehow inspire confidence and be reassuring, but be also realistic. And it's a lot of parts and a lot of pieces.
Dr. Ng, how about you? What are you trying to convey when you first meet a patient who's going through cancer?
And yeah, Tessa brings up all of these essential elements. I often have a line that runs through my mind before I see patients, which is that very famous line in literature that in the middle of our life's journey, I find myself in a dark forest, for the straight road was lost. And when Kiley was bringing up these stories again, just reminds me of that. And the reason why I tell myself that is that for a doctor, it's a very busy day, but for the patient, this is the crisis of her time. And you to just remember that moment that we're trying to orient ourselves again after a diagnosis and just realize that this is, and that's what you were talking about with the moment. This is the moment that's so important to the patient. Let's sit down and work this out.
You've also mentioned treating with your heart, not just your head. Can you elaborate on that?
So, sorry, I'm gonna have a lot of pithy phrases because it reminds you during a busy day, right? It's that we take care of people, not robots, and you treat with your heart, not your head sometimes, because yes, you can, you run through taking care of patients, you can, and you have a busy schedule and there are realistic constraints, but there are lives, not just the person in front of you, but entire families of lives, and you have to be able to just realize that this is the person in front of you, what's important to her, and to just take the time to think about that. Mm-hmm. That's what I mean by treating with your heart.
And Dr. Cigler, we heard so many examples tonight of the human element of care in your care of Kiley. Is there anything you want to elaborate on that human element of care?
I would say the greatest gift of being a physician is making connections with people. And in my field, I meet just the most incredible women all the time. But each person is different, and I think it's important to make those connections and really understand what each woman needs, and it's often different. And the treatment or the algorithm is the same, although each cancer, is, we personalize care for each, we tailor care for each type of cancer. But the human touch and how it's presented takes a lot of thought and work kind of in the moment.
And I think in so many ways, Kiley's story is so amazing. Can you talk about how the team came together to treat her? And either one of you can answer that.
I think every doctor knew about Kiley because we got a lot of advice and a lot of opinions. And I mean, it took a village. And we did not take the responsibility lightly.
Tessa's being really kind here. I think in terms of flashes of memories in one's mind, I still remember these moments. I'm in the clinic and I get this call from Tessa and I'm like, isn't Tessa away? And I'm picking this up and Tessa's like, John, we have to talk, and you can't believe who it is. And Tessa has a style when she does this.
I sound very bossy tonight.
Like,
in the best way. In the best way.
And those are the fragments that I can remember discussion, but we're not going to keep everyone here for that. But but that's the nature of, first, at a very personal level, why Dr. Cigler is a great doctor, but also a lot of how wonderful doctors at York-Presbyterian work. We will call each other on the cell phone at that moment it doesn't matter. You're somewhere. They're just those moments that you have to be able to communicate and coordinate. And in Kiley's, I still remember that phone call. So it's
That was just the phone call. I don't think any of us were expecting that phone call. It was, but I will say, there was a huge, just collaborative effort among all of my doctors, even the ones that maybe I had not seen for a while, and the whole hospital, like you said, I feel like the whole hospital was working on it at one point. And that's really one of the lovely things about New York-Presbyterian was that at every turn, every time there was, new bad news or a more complicated side effect than we had planned, there was a doctor. Dr. Cigler found me a doctor every single time. And it was great. I wasn't chasing referrals. I wasn't, sort of in the dark, like trying to figure out what to do. They always had someone there for me.
In terms of specifics, Dr. Ng, what role did radiation therapy and immunotherapy play in her care?
Yeah, Kiley brought it from the patient's perspective. I'll try to present it a little bit from the clinician's perspective, particularly at that kind of in the middle story where she is diagnosed with leptomeningeal disease. It's a very serious condition and can be sometimes rapidly progressive. She was having some lower back pain, and radiation in that setting really usually helps with symptoms, tries to slow down progression of disease. But in talking with her, we really tailored something because it was on Labor Day weekend, and we're doing this. And we said, okay, we'll treat a limited area, but at the first sign that anything changes, we'll change course. You'll come to the hospital, we'll have to do whole brain radiation treatment maybe, we'll be more aggressive. And in the back of my mind, I'm just thinking, well, are we making the right decision? And but of course, as a clinician, you learn don't communicate these things out. But it works out, right? It works out, and Kiley was. I just remember you coming 3 hours every day for your radiation treatment, and I go, oh my gosh. The dedication, but and then it was also at the time where and still is a hot area, the idea that radiation and immunotherapy might combine to produce some synergistic effect. But it's the magic of Dr. Cigler. The systemic therapy worked beautifully, and of course we wish it happens very frequently.
So Dr. Cigler, has Kiley's journey taught you anything? What does her story talk about the future of cancer treatment? And what are you excited about for the future of cancer treatment?
I think Kiley is the message of hope, and hope for everyone, no matter what the diagnosis, what the prognosis, what the odds are. And I think, Kiley, what you said about nobody knows. And even though it's the most impossible thing to do, and you have done it so well, but the goal of trying to live in the moment.
Mm-hmm. So I think so many of us have been touched by cancer. I'm sure lots of people in this room either have experienced it or have a loved one. Is there any advice you have for people going through cancer, whether it's the patient themselves or maybe their family or loved ones?
Gather information and find a doctor who you trust. Because it turns out with any cancer journey, you're going to spend a lot of time with your doctor, with your team. And the hope is that you can find somewhere, someone, people that inspire confidence.
Mm-hmm.
From the clinician's perspective, I think it's important to always kind of realize that there are a lot of people that get involved in terms of any patient's treatment. As Kiley's telling the story, yes, Dr. Cigler, who's really the key to quarterbacking everything. But from the therapy side, it's the therapists who come every day. It's the physicists in the background that you don't even get to interact with who are working furiously on the plans. It's the staff, the assistants who are like, okay, we'll put Ms. Durham on. Dr. Ng, you've got an appointment at 3 o'clock and 3:30. Can you fit today? You go, yes, you have to make this fit. And I think that is an important element for patients to know about cancer care in 2024. It is a lot of people getting together, and sometimes they don't get the glory that I always want to make sure that they understand are so important as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think it's clear the bond Kiley feels with you both. How does it feel to see patients like Kiley thriving today? Dr. Ng, why don't you start? You both look like you have something to say.
Kiley is amazing, and I think New York-Presbyterian made amazing call here. I'll remember Hannah. She's a nurse who was just saying, she's young, but you can tell she's going to be strong. She's not going to let this beat her. But it's a certain strength, and your example, because there are going to be, we're talking today, but we know in weeks or months there'll be another patient with a very similar story, and she'll be going what is this going to mean for me? And she'll hear about your story, and she'll say, yeah, this is how we're going to beat this. This is how we're going to do it. And that's why it's a great story. It needs to be told.
Dr. Cigler, how does it feel to see patients like Kiley thriving?
Kiley is, to me, just a reminder of the incredible privilege that comes with being able to do what I do. And at the same time, the big responsibility. And it just, the notion of hope and resilience and grace really just is, it's the best part of my job.
That's wonderful. Is there anything you want to add, or Kiley, anything you want to share talking with your doctors?
I think as far as the doctors go, I think sometimes, especially at a high level, when you're talking cancer or other very serious diseases, I think there's this sort of idea of, sort of a removed feeling you have about those doctors because it's a very serious thing they're doing. But the amazing thing is that they're doing this incredibly serious, compassionate thing with so many patients every single day. And then they go home and they're fathers and they're mothers and they have aging parents and they have, relationships that they're fostering and children that they're taking care of and groceries that they have to buy and all of these things. And they still have, they are giving up a lot of that time to be there for women like me and people like you guys. It's just a really special thing that you guys decided to do.
Thank you so much. This has been such a wonderful conversation. Thank you, Kiley. Thank you, Dr. Cigler, Dr. Ng. We'd love to turn it to the crowd for any questions. Here.
What are the things in your life that bring you back down to earth and keep you grounded, that helps you get through the moments where it feels rough, it feels tough? What are the things that you can share with the audience in terms, Kiley, of what kept you grounded, what kept you sound, what kept you going?
There are a few things. My faith, it carried me through even the hardest times. My wonderful family and friends, my community really just rallied around me in the biggest way, and they always have. And seeing so many of you guys here tonight is going to bring the tears out. You guys kept me going, even when I didn't think that I could go anymore. And I think that having a creative outlet and being able to paint every day and having something to be excited about was a really important thing for me. And I think that wanting to set a very positive example for my children as far as perseverance, resiliency, and gratitude. I think that I was bound and determined to show them what fighting looked like. And in the video, they play the clip where I said, when my children told the story of their mom, what story are they telling? Are they telling the story of a woman who gave it all that she had and taught them to give life all that they have? Or did she give up and sit in the corner and let cancer win? And I just wasn't going to have that. So even when the days got really, really hard, I looked at those little bitty faces and I thought about the life, the grown-up life that they will live and the legacy that I will leave behind one day. And it propelled me through in the biggest way.
I'm actually finishing radiation next week, so thank you.
Congratulations!
Thank you. I have a question about the art that you made. Did you find yourself changing the way that you painted, or even the subjects of that you were painting? How did that change over the course of your treatment?
I think when I first started painting again, the female figures that I was drawing and painting was basically muscle memory from working in the fashion industry for so long and drawing fashion illustrations every day. I mean, that was just really autopilot for me. And so it was sort of a comfortable place to start. And then as time went on, I think one day I looked at the paintings and they sort of looked like me. And I don't know if we have any of those playing today, but some of the earliest ones were just a head. They didn't have any hair. And the arms were sort of down by the sides, almost like my hands were tied. And I think it was really like a personification of me, where I was in my treatment. I had no hair. I had lost my breast. I had lost part of my brain. I had, because I was BRCA positive, I had to have my ovaries removed. And I had so many things happening. And there was a point in time where I think I just felt like I was just a shell with a dress on. And that was kind of what I was painting. And then I think as I changed, they became a little brighter and with a little more movement and a little more vibrant. And for sure, I'm one of 4 daughters. And I also have a brother, come from a huge family. So girls have been at the center of my life my entire life. And the paintings of multiple females were, definitely symbolic of the multiple females, wonderful females in my life that were rallying around me at every step of the way. It was just a happy thing. The color, I just like color. I can't really explain all the bright colors, but I just find happiness in all the colors.
I have a question for the doctors. It seems like Kiley was diagnosed when she was fairly young. And I feel like I've been reading lately a lot about the rise of cancer rates in young people. So I'm curious, are you guys seeing that at New-York-Presbyterian? And what are you attributing that to?
Tough question there. Did you want to try to tackle that one, or do you want me to? I'll try one. I have been noticing it anecdotally, and recently there have been studies more formally, which is a better way of, and it does appear that the incidence of younger women being diagnosed with breast cancer seems to be rising. I have not, as far as I'm aware, heard a great explanation of why. So.
I agree with John completely. I think that it's a subject of a lot of attention at the moment, as to why the demographic and the age seems to be changing. Young women in general, women with breast cancer related mutations, like the BRCA gene, that's an explanation for why a woman might get breast cancer at such a young age, and there's other risk factors, but we don't have answers yet for sure. But it's one of my interests. My clinical interest is young women with breast cancer, and we know these women often have more aggressive types of cancers, and as well have a lot of unique needs for young women with breast cancer in terms of fertility treatments, genetic counselors, social needs with dating, families, young children. And so it's, every breast cancer is different, but certainly breast cancer in young women is challenging for many reasons.
Yes.
So now that you're cancer-free, how do you balance your survivor identity with undoubtedly anxiety about it coming back?
That is something that I think any survivor, even if they had not had it come back so many times, it's never not in the room with you. It's always sort of sitting next to you. Some days it's sitting more loudly, jumping up and down in front of you, and other days it's a little more over in the corner. But cancer is scary, and that fear doesn't really go away. I think the way that I live through it is, sort of speaking back to what I did, what I was saying before about just really embracing every day and doing the best I can in every day. One thing personally for me that I do is I really take care of myself. I try to keep a clean diet. I keep alcohol and sugar and processed foods to a minimum. I try to exercise every day if I can. And I think a lot of times doctors say try to eliminate stress. It's a little bit of a misnomer. It's more like learn how to deal with the stress, sort of don't let it take over your body. And so I just have really worked at those things. I think that makes me feel like I have, not necessarily control over the cancer, because that is different, but it does give me some control over my life, and it gives me a reason to, enjoy my life. And so I think balancing survivorship with identity is, sort of a difficult thing to really answer, but I try to embrace the life I have right now and live healthy and enjoy it, and understand that I will always be a survivor. And if one day I am a fighter again, I will hopefully be a survivor again. And I think that's the best you can do.
That's so powerful, Kiley. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you so much to Kiley Durham for sharing her story with us. Thank you, Dr. Ng. Thank you, Dr. Cigler. Thank you all for coming. Please be sure to subscribe to our Health Matters podcast, and you can check this episode out very soon. Thank you so much.